On a budget day, it's nice to be at a cricket pitch. Now, what do you make of that? Here on ET Now, this is Budget Powerplay. This is a show where we are going to unpack what the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has said in the presentation of her 7th consecutive budget. And we're going to do this with cricketing analogies. There is going to be a cricketing twist. I'm Vikram Oza. Thanks for joining us. From out of the park moves that we've seen these tricky Yorkers, we've seen these bouncers. The Finance Minister has played them all. And we are here to decode this big budget and the kind of announcements that were made by the Finance Minister. So first, let's bring to the crease Vijay Lokapally. He's the consulting editor at SPORTSTAR. Vijay, you know, you're taking the strike this time, and I'm going to be at the non-striking end. How does that sound?
That's fine, but I like your get-up.
You do? It feels good to do this at a business news channel on a budget day, to talk about cricket. Vijay, what's top of mind for all of us in India is this big victory we've had. The big one in Barbados, when India beat South Africa, and we ended that drought of 13 years, and we came away with the ICC trophy, that tournament, and today's event, the budget. The Finance Minister has done this record-breaking 7th budget in a row. She's presented it. And there are lots of parallels that we are drawing with the budget and the world of cricket between your cricket acumen and my little experience in business news coverage. Vijay, we are here to break it down for our viewers. So yes, today there were quite a few out-of-the-park shots that Madam FM has fired straight off the bat. But let's give context to this, Vijay. From the tournament, if you were to remind our viewers of the most striking out-of-the-park shots that were played, which ones would you say were they?
I would say every wicket-taking ball that Jasprit Bumrah produced, because almost unplayable, especially against the game against Pakistan, and how they came back against South Africa with the match almost gone. They got the big prize money. They won a great following, but importantly, they performed to perfection, I would say, because a last over finish in a World Cup final is what the fans required. And it's good for Indian cricket. And when Indian cricket does well, it's good for Indian sports also. Because if you see, BCCI is now going to help the IOA with some funds to prepare the athletes. And with the Olympics coming on, I think these are the best times to be a sportsman.
Good to be a sportsman, Vijay, and it's something that we don't get a chance to do very often over here. But now, if those are the best kind of shots that we've seen getting played in the tournament, Vijay, look how the Finance Minister has done. How she's sent the ball flying out of the stadium, as it were. She reduced customs duty on importing gold. From what was at 15%, she's brought it down to 6%. So anyone in the jewelry business, even consumers, they must be doing the Mexican wave, and that's not the only shot. In fact, listen to what she's announced that really took it out of the park this time.
Our government will launch a comprehensive scheme for providing internship opportunities in 500 top companies to 1 crore youth in 5 years. They will gain exposure for 12 months to real-life business environment, varied professions, and employment opportunities.
So, Vijay, we like it when the Finance Minister plays it out of the park, as it were. But we as spectators or taxpayers, what we don't like are some of these Yorkers that the Finance Minister seems to have bowled this time. Of course, we know Bumrah is one of the finest deaths over bowlers, if not the finest. And boy, did he deliver in the finals. But you tell me first, Vijay, what is it about Bumrah's Yorkers that make them a batter's nightmare?
I think if you see, that is his strong point. He has worked on Yorkers, and people forget that he's also good at bowling the away-going ball. So many times, he has got batsmen out in the slips and got them to fend the ball and get caught in the slip cotton or closing fielders. But it's a fact that he can produce a Yorker at will. And that is his speciality. I mean, he has trained for it for years. And as you are showing now, his unique action is, I would say, the strongest point of his bowling, because you can't really make out which way the ball is going to go, whether it's going to be an outswinger or in swinger, and the angles which he explores. I've not seen any bowler explore so many angles on a cricket field. A spinner, yes, he does vary his length, but this bowler explores all the possible angles and he makes the life miserable for batsmen, however best you are.
In fact, those kind of Yorkers, they are painful, to say the least, Vijay. And sometimes when an FM decides to play it against the Aam Aadmi, it isn't very playful, to say the least. As far as excitement goes about the investments in the stock markets are concerned, the Finance Minister has bowled a Yorker. She's hiked the short-term gains on some assets to 20% from what was 15%. So, for example, if you bought and sold a stock within a year, there is every likelihood that you're going to get clean bowled by paying 20% as capital gains. And it's not like you get let off from the Finance Minister's fine bowling if you keep your investments any longer, because even the long-term capital gains tax has gone up. From 10%, you will now be paying 12.5% if you hold that same stock for more than a year. So, yeah, there are ways to get the taxpayer clean bowled. This is how the Finance Minister has decided to do it with her Yorkers. Just listen in.
Capital gains taxation is also proposed to be hugely simplified. Short-term gains on certain financial assets shall henceforth attract a tax rate of 20%, while that on all other financial assets and all non-financial assets shall continue to attract the applicable tax rate. Long-term gains on all financial and non-financial assets, on the other hand, will attract a tax rate of 12.5%. For the benefit of the lower and the middle income classes, I propose to increase the limit of exemption of capital gains on certain financial assets to 1.25 lakh rupees per year.
So now we are getting an understanding of how those Yorkers have been playing out. In fact, some of the market veterans we were speaking to, they have been crying foul over this kind of move. Just listen to what they've said about it.
I think my view is it doesn't matter the increase in long-term capital tax from 10 to 1.5%. The longer the period you hold, it becomes a fraction of your income. So therefore, that's not something one should bother about it. I think SIP culture that got built in the last few years, and SIP way of investing now has become a way of investing in the capital market. Definitely would have to be continued. I think would continue.
I think there has been a lot of noises over the last couple of months in terms of the rising interest in F&O speculation, and I think something was expected from the government and regulators to address that. But to promote the long-term investments, I think market wasn't expecting much change in the long-term capital gain tax.
Macro environment for these corporates or the companies where you have invested in, whether they can grow well and create capital gains for you is most important. I think market has become very matured. That's the reason it did not react very badly for this capital gain tax increase. And everything is all is well in the market.
We started with no expectations in terms of changes in capital gains, and therefore the small increase in capital gains tax is definitely not welcome. And the other thing is there are some uncertainties regarding the buyback tax. Obviously, STT has got increased. I am hoping that it is only for speculative transactions, not for delivery transactions, because the whole purpose of STT was in lieu of capital gains tax. So now we have capital gains tax as well as STT. But all said and done, if you are looking at a 15% return going forward, a change of 2.5% in long-term capital gains tax reduces your returns by maybe 30 basis points. So we'll have to work hard to make 30 basis points more than the 14-15% we were making. It's as simple as that.
My fundamental story, long-term story for India is still intact. So I'm not too bearish on the country just because this is one budget event. My profit has come down, to be honest. That's what has happened. or it's not something which will shake the market and then the confidence in the country. So the budget hasn't done anything fundamentally wrong.
Okay, so now while capital gains turned out to be the yorkers for the markets, at that innings that the FM has played at the crease, she stood her ground when it came to income tax for the salaried class. Now, that's the hallmark of a good batsman, Vijay, wouldn't you say, to play a solid defense? And it's not really easy to play a solid defense. What do you think?
Vikram, I think if you ask me honestly, I pay my taxes and I pray that I'll be able to save some more, have some more money in my account. And these are topics which I have hardly understood in my career. I've been a sports journalist, but from what I'm hearing, there are mixed reactions. And obviously, the best thing the finance minister has done is, if we are going to discuss in the pro show ahead, the allocation for sports.
Well, that's something that people in the sports world would be looking forward to with great excitement. But when it comes to taxpayers, they seem to be saying that they haven't got too much. So yes, as far as the FM is concerned, she's standing her ground. And at the cricket pitch, you do want to do that. You want to play a solid defense. So she hasn't changed her stance much. So what you can expect the FM to do by way of continuity, she seems to have delivered on that front. But what is the taxpayer looking for? Maybe not delivered to the kind of expectation that was built over there. Just listen in to what the finance minister has said to taxpayers. Okay, all right. We don't seem to have what the finance minister has said about taxpayers, and that's just as well, because just reiterating the obvious is not going to change the fact that those kind of standard deductions for salaried employees now getting hiked from 50,000 to 75,000, deduction on families. The pension is to be enhanced now from 15,000 to 25,000. But Vijay, you've heard the finance minister play these defensive strokes on the income tax front. You know, you're a taxpayer as well. So when you talk about the expectations as opposed to what you actually get in the world of cricket, there is always a big slip between the cup and lip. Hasn't that happened to you as a spectator?
Well, Vikram, if you ask me, honestly, I would expect. I don't mind paying my taxes. I should get good returns for it. If the finance minister assures me a decent life after I pay my taxes, fair enough. But generally, we end up, especially senior citizens. I don't know what is there for senior citizen. You'll have to guide me if there is a thought from the finance minister for all the old people in the society. I mean, we have a difficult life. But yes, like you said, she has batted well. And you have been guiding me right through the last 10 minutes, and where she has done well, where she hasn't. But as far as I think sportsmen are concerned, I don't think, Vikram, they're going to be complaining.
Vijay, now we've spoken a lot about how she's kind of not delivered, at least on expectations of many taxpayers, if not all. But when you look at the middle class, the question is, did the finance minister bowl so easy that the middle class came out of the crease to hit the ball hard? And then, you know, when you get excited, when you see an easy ball, you come out of the crease and you want to hit it hard. That would have happened. But then what happens in the end of such a strike is that you get bowled. You get caught at the boundary sometimes. Vijay, that happens a lot too. And you would have seen that in the tournament that we've come out of all successful.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, you get a flighted ball. You think there is a bounty to be had, a six to be hit. And then you realize you have missed it completely to be stumped. So basically, you have been fooled. So you have to be an expert to realize that, to understand that. And on the cricket field, of course, it's a different game. The bowler is trying to lure you, trying to entice you. But sometimes you win, sometimes he wins. But like you said, yes, there are. These are the, what should I say, the loopholes which we have to understand and try and avoid.
Well, I don't know if the finance minister has done her best to avoid them, because she hasn't given any relief to the middle class on taxes, and that's how it's turned out. And just some small tweaks have come through to the tax slabs. You know, when you were playing cricket, even if it was gully cricket, when you look at this possibility of being lured out of the crease, hitting hard, you get into that mode, but when you don't deliver, then what happens? How does a taxpayer, a consumer, a spectator react in that kind of situation, or even a player at the crease?
You come to grief, obviously, and that's an instant grief. You've lost a wicket, or if you have bowled a bad ball, you've been hit for a boundary or a six. But then you look to retrieve the lost ground. You try and analyze the situation and make the best out of it. So tomorrow, when I read the different papers and I see more of your reactions and observations, I'll be able to understand where I stand. Because as a taxpayer, I don't have any choice. I mean, whatever little income I have, I will have to keep paying my taxes and pray to God that, okay, I'll be able to save something and give my family a decent holiday in a year. But if that doesn't happen, then obviously I've been taken for a ride. I don't know how the finance minister is going to help me by making things easy for the middle class. And if you think it's going to be tight for the middle class, then I'll be very, very sad at the end of the year.
Talk to me about bouncers, because that's something that a batter has to kind of deal with every now and then. You'll have an aggressive bowler who will really draw that out of you. So sometimes you want to kind of, I don't know if play defensive is the right word, but you'd want to safeguard your own interest by ducking. That's one thing that would happen. The other thing is you'd get aggressive and get as aggressive as a Rohit Sharma, and you'd want to go with a hook shot. Rohit Sharma and a hook shot go together, don't they?
Of course, the hook and the pull which he plays predetermined, and it takes great skills to play that shot at the ball coming at such searing pace, and he does it so beautifully. It's a joy to behold, and Indian cricket has been extremely lucky to have had Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli serving at the same time, whether it's in T20, ODIs, or even Test cricket. Rohit Sharma has performed exceedingly well in Test matches also. So there are a lot of parallels between them. They complement each other so well. And you are so right in saying playing the hook shot, Rohit Sharma comes out on tops because of the confidence that he has. He knows he can take on the best of the fast bowlers, and he has been doing it repeatedly. It's another matter that he has decided to stop playing T20. Obviously, he has to preserve his energies and body to do his best in ODI cricket, in Test cricket, with the Australian series coming towards the end of the year. It's going to be a big test for both of these stalwarts.
You know what, Vijay? I think this time in the budget, in the preparation of it and in the presentation of it, I think the finance minister has been inspired by Rohit Sharma's famous hook shot. She has gone ahead. She slashed customs duty, not just on gold imports, I mentioned that earlier, but this is about the electronic goods that you and I use, and that's actually happened, like mobiles and mobile chargers and such. So yes, the finance minister has done that with a hook shot of her own. But then what's a hook shot? Like we said, without a crazy bouncer in her arsenal, the finance minister is turning out to be quite an all-rounder in that sense. When she took on the bowling attack, there has been a big bouncer as well. And this was about doing away with the indexation benefit when capital gains is calculated on property transactions. And that effectively means that the advantage that you and I had with indexation, the effect of inflation that would be accounted for, would reduce our tax burden on property transactions. But now with this bouncer of the finance minister, she's bowled it, and now we won't get that tax benefit anymore. If you're still not following what I'm saying, let me get in Snehi, my colleague, to explain this for us. Snehi, it's quite a bouncer that the finance minister has played as far as the indexation benefit goes on property transactions. Help me and our viewers understand what this really implies.
Absolutely, Vikram. Like you said, spot on. It's a bouncer coming in, but what I would say, it's just a prima facie bouncer coming in. It is not that big of a deal to worry about. And I'll also explain you why this is happening, why the street has taken it so badly when it is not all that much to worry about. First of all, let's understand what has been announced for the real estate sector. the long-term capital gains rate on sale of property has been reduced to 12.5% from 20%. So if it's a rate cut, it's a good thing, right? Absolutely. But why was Nifty Realty spooked in trade today, down 2.3%? Well, the indexation announcement is a big reason why this happened. Now, the indexation benefit on the sale of property has been removed for any property that has been held for over 24 months, which is 2 years, which is what makes property classified into a long-term asset. So what's the big deal about this, and what's the entire worry on the street as of now? Many people who want to sell their property will not be able to inflate their purchase price and reduce their capital gains. First of all, let's understand what indexation means. It's a value of a property that has been adjusted over the years to also price in or factor in the inflation that the economy has seen over the years to give a fair price to your property. Now, as of now, the current cost inflation rate is at 363%. You may ask what this means. Let me explain that to you. If you bought a property at 10 lakh rupees in 2001, which is the base year for indexation, and you decide to sell it now, you would get an indexation benefit of 3.63 times, which means now this property of yours is valued at 36.3 lakh rupees. If you sell this house at 1 crore rupees, if you end up selling at 1 crore, earlier you would have had to pay a tax of 20% capital gains on the difference between that 36.3 lakh and 1 crore, which is 63.7 lakh, and then your tax would come up to 12.7 lakh rupees on this entire transaction. Now, let's talk about the provision that's come into place and what is going to happen once this provision is implemented. Once this provision comes into place, you are required to pay 12.5% instead of the 20% earlier, but now you will be paying this 12.5% on your entire gains without indexation, which means you bought it at 10 lakh, you're selling it at 1 crore, you will be paying 12.5% on 90 lakh rupees. Prima facie, this sounds like a big amount, but once I do the math, 20% of that 63.7 lakh comes to 12.75, and surprisingly 12.5% on 90 lakh comes up to only 11.25 lakh, which means even if you take indexation away, according to this math on this figure, this new provision makes your tax burden come lower. Prima facie, the street has been worrying about the taking away of indexation, but when you put in the numbers and do the math, it's not all that much to worry about. And we also have a Motilal Oswal note that agrees to this, saying that taking away indexation is not going to hurt primary demand coming in. Of course, this is just a knee-jerk reaction that the street has been seeing. Calculations will measure up differently if you put in different amounts for taxes. The street is out on what this provision could mean, and the Finance Secretary TV Somnathan has also said that there is either a reduction or no change in effective capital gains on real estate. So, well, not much to worry
this
about.
is something that you're pointing out by way of a bouncer. It is still a bouncer, but it is not as lethal. Vijay, you've come across lethal bouncers. Who would you say are the most lethal? And very quickly, since we're running out of time.
I didn't get your question. Sorry.
I was asking about lethal bouncers in the game today. Which are the ones that you consider are the most aggressive and the most you need to be scared of kind of bouncer bowlers?
So obviously, Bumrah is there, and Siraj is much underrated because every time there is Bumrah to look up to. We have had some fantastic fast bowlers in the previous era. If you remember, Davagal Srinath had a vicious bouncer, and he once hit a batsman on the head, and the batsman lost all his confidence to play cricket again. Bhupinder Junior from Punjab. So he had a very lethal bouncer. After that, I think Bumrah has that. There was Prashant Vaidya from Vidarbha, who used to bowl a very good bouncer. Kapil also had a bouncer very well concealed. And I mean, these were the names we have always heard. Earlier times, Mr. Gavaskar would always mention Andy Roberts, who had two bouncers, slow bouncer. So that was a term which we had heard for the first time, a slow bouncer. And then, of course, Imran Khan was there, Fakar Yunus, they were Dennis Lilly. But I think in contemporary cricket, there is no one better than Bumrah who can rattle you with a ball which will climb at your throat. It can hit you on the forehead. And there have been times when I've seen the Ireland team in this very World Cup, how the batsmen were backing away because Bumrah was bowling at such a searing pace.
Well, we are taking it a little lightly over here and not using a seasoned ball. Here in the studios of ET now, we are playing only with a very light ball. But yes, whether or not they're lethal or not, these bouncers are very important. But I don't know about lethal attacks. This budget, as far as the finance minister is concerned, now she has thrown up enough yorkers, enough bouncers that we've spoken about, lured batters out of the crease to hit big and then get caught at the boundary. Some hook shots as well that took the ball out of the park. And sure, there have been some strong defensive moves by the finance minister this time, so much that connects the budget and this forever exhilarating game of cricket. I'm so glad that you could join us today at the crease. Vijay, thanks very much for being part of this journey. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. And indeed, we'll continue making these analogies, continue talking about cricket and talking about all things finance. And today, of course, the finance minister has been at the crease with us. Thank you indeed for joining us. I'm going to continue playing the game. Thanks indeed for joining us on ET Now. Missed.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.